They didn't know what they had. That's why they treated you like you were replaceable. That's why they stopped appreciating the little things. That's why they became comfortable giving you the bare minimum. That's why they assumed you'd always be there. Because familiarity has a way of making people overlook what once felt like a blessing. Have you ever noticed that? The very things people once prayed for, they eventually start expecting. The attention, the loyalty, the consistency, the patience, the understanding, the love. At first, they were grateful. Then they become accustomed. And if they're not careful, they become entitled. See, that's the dangerous part. People don't always lose good things because they hated them. Sometimes they lose good things because they stopped honoring them. They stopped protecting them. They stopped nurturing them. They stopped appreciating them. And when appreciation leaves, care usually follows. That's why they stopped noticing everything you were doing. They stopped saying thank you. They stopped asking how you were doing. They stopped checking in. They stopped making an effort because in their mind, you weren't going anywhere. They had convinced themselves, you'll always be here. You'll always forgive me. You'll always understand. You'll always make another excuse for me. And that's exactly where they made their biggest mistake. You see, they confused your consistency with your inability to leave. Those aren't the same things, but yet they confused them. Just because someone has been patient doesn't mean they don't have a breaking point. Just because someone has loved you deeply doesn't mean they'll tolerate being taken for granted forever. Just because someone keeps showing up doesn't mean they don't notice what's happening, because sometimes they're simply hoping things will change. Sometimes they're giving you another opportunity. Sometimes they're fighting for the relationship while you're assuming the relationship no longer needs to be fought for. And eventually, those opportunities run out. Not because they stopped loving you, because they finally started loving themselves too. And that's what catches people off guard. You see, they expected your love to outweigh your self-respect. They expected your loyalty to outweigh your peace. They expected your patience to outweigh your boundaries. But eventually, every healthy person reaches a moment where they realize, I can't keep pouring into a place that's consistently draining me. That's not selfish. That's wisdom. Because love isn't supposed to cost you yourself. I think one of the saddest things in life is when someone doesn't recognize the value that's right in front of them until it's no longer available. And it's not because they couldn't see it, because they stopped looking. There's a difference. When gratitude disappears, people start seeing blessings as obligations. And that's dangerous because nobody wants to feel like they're only appreciated for what they provide. People want to feel seen, respected, validated, chosen, not just used. And that's why so many people wake up one day and realize, I've been giving everything to someone who stopped noticing anything. And that's painful, but it's also revealing, because sometimes what hurts you the most also shows you the truth you've been avoiding. The truth that you've been trying to earn appreciation from someone who has become comfortable receiving without reciprocating. And relationships can't thrive that way. They become one-sided. One person keeps investing, the other keeps withdrawing. One keeps watering the garden, the other just expects it to stay alive. Eventually, the flowers stop blooming. It's not because they were weak, because nobody was tending to them anymore. And here's something I want you to remember. People rarely miss your value while they have unlimited access to it. They usually recognize it when access is no longer guaranteed. I'll say that again. People rarely miss your value while they have unlimited access to it. They usually recognize it when access is no longer guaranteed. That doesn't mean you remove yourself to teach someone a lesson. It means you stop abandoning yourself just to keep someone comfortable. Because there's a big difference. One is manipulation, the other is self-respect. And if someone only starts valuing you after they lose access to you, that tells you something. Not necessarily about your worth either, but about their awareness. That's why I always say, I help people reinterpret their past so that they can reclaim their future. Because maybe they didn't know what they had, but that doesn't mean you didn't know who you were becoming. Maybe they overlooked your value, but you don't have to make the same mistake. Don't spend your life trying to convince someone to appreciate you. Become the kind of person who appreciates yourself enough to stop settling for less. That's one of the reasons why I wrote Phoenix From Stability to Power. Because confidence isn't making someone regret losing you. Confidence is reaching the point where someone else's inability to recognize your value no longer determines how you see yourself. So yes, they didn't know what they had. They overlooked your loyalty. They overlooked your heart. They overlooked your patience. They overlooked your consistency. They overlooked your value. What they never expected was that while they were busy taking you for granted, you were becoming someone who would never again take yourself for granted. And the real victory wasn't making them realize what they lost. The real victory was finally realizing what they had all along, you. And once you recognize your own value, you stop waiting for someone else to introduce you to it. Peace, blessings, love, and power.